had another dream, Dad.
I understand, son. We have to get on with it. We each have responsibilities.
Yeah.
Son, I think it's time you and I had a little talk. And you're old enough to get your head down out of the clouds. Start keeping both feet on the ground, right?
Okay.
Stop daydreaming. Start facing your problems, okay?
Okay.
There. We've had a nice talk. Have warm. Have a good day, son.
But you...
What?
Nothing.
Friends, I know why you are all here.
It's so dark. In the beginning, it was dark.
Hi guys. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'll wait for someone to give me a little thumbs up in the chat that you can hear me. Otherwise I've got things to break. And the clock hits bong. It's been another fun week. I guess it's only been a couple days since I saw most of you. Had a nice time watching the movie with you all. Hopefully you enjoyed it as well. Seemed to go over pretty well, other than we had a lot of questions that were kind of off topic from the movie, but I'll address that before we watch the next one. Notes. It's actually, if you saw the picture, it actually says notes on it. It's literally notes. So what are we talking about today? It's called The Grey, so we must be talking about the grey in my beard. No, not really. Little grey aliens? No, that's not worth our time. Gandalf, yeah, we're getting closer. I want to talk about balance. When I was pretty young, there was a really strong emphasis on the colors red and the colors blue and the emotions attached to them. And I often got called Mr. Green because I was very balanced all the time within my own emotional center. It's something that I work hard on, and I think it's very important. I've seen, bad things happen when people go out of balance, or when anything goes out of balance. That's where disease starts. So, another nickname that I had from kind of family members was Gandalf, which is also the same. I just, I don't seem to get too excited. I don't seem to get too sad. I'm always somewhere in between. So the roots of balance are in the two extremes of light and dark. I've said it before, if things are too light, you can't see, and if things are too dark, you can't see. You need somewhere in between in order to create shadow and depth. And to achieve balance, you're going to have to know both ends of that spectrum. So you're going to have to know what the light is like, and you're going to have to know what the dark is like, and that's what hangs a lot of people up is, the dark's a little scary for them. The light feels good. Most people don't get too scared of the light, to a point. I mean, I guess there's a pretty powerful quote of how we're not really afraid of our own darkness. We're actually afraid of our own light. And that is true within ourselves, but just in the world we typically don't have too much trouble observing light. We have a really hard time taking a good hard look at the dark. Again, if you stare into the dark too long, bad things can happen. Just like if you stare into it too long, bad things can happen. So you always want to make sure that you're trying to, look at the shades in between. And that's where we get into the grays, right? All the various shades of gray that make up our perceptions and our opinions and our emotions and basically how we're perceiving the world. So from a very root cause, balance is important in order for us to have any sort of perception or experience within physical reality. And then what are the typical types of things that we're going to need to balance in our life as a human? Are love and hate, those two polar opposite emotions. Basically the baseline for everything, just like light and dark, are more or less the same idea in a different word, in a different concept, placed within a different dimension, which is your emotional spectrum. So once again, I think that it's actually easier for people to feel absolute hate, to learn to hate, than it is for them to learn to love. I believe when we're born, it's quite the opposite of that hate is almost a foreign concept to us, and love is, the natural occurrence. But as we get older and as, the programming kicks in and things start breaking down on us, we end up getting to this point where, fear is ruling our lives, and therefore hate is a very easy course of action. And so once again, in order to know the balance between the two, you need to know the extreme ends of both, the extreme ends of the spectrum. So you need to know hate. You need to know anger. You need to know all of those other emotions that are associated with fear, just like you need to know joy and gratefulness and love on the other end. And then learn how to balance them so that you're not giving away love when you shouldn't. Not that you ever really shouldn't, but you know what I mean. Giving away love in a way that's damaging to you, a way that's draining to you, or that you're falling into the fear frequencies like hate and prejudice and insecurities, things like that, so much on the other side. Learning to balance the two requires you to make sure that you don't fall too far into either category, and if you do, start to feel an abundance of either, kind of rule your life, then it's good to check in with that and maybe find some reasons why you might be overvaluing something that's making that emotion go in that extreme. Whether it's negative or positive. Maybe you're overvaluing something that's making you think something is more important than it actually is, or maybe you're undervaluing something that's making something appear like it's less valuable than it actually is. So another big aspect, obviously, that we all have to deal with is the masculine and feminine sides of us. This is a really tough one because our concepts of what it means to be one or the other are all over the map. They've been perverted and beaten down over time. And, it's something that we're all kind of discovering, I think, within ourselves, is what it means to be masculine and what it means to be feminine, what aspects of ourselves are both. Because whether you're male or whether you're female genetically, you're going to have aspects of both. And I think true wisdom in either sex comes from someone who does learn how to examine both sides of that within themselves and find some type of balance or equilibrium within their life. Something I personally, strive really hard for is to, examine my feminine side and not be afraid of it, even though all of my programming as a man would tell me to stay away from it. It's just, you're being a pussy. Sorry for the language, but you get the point. Not being afraid to examine those things has been what's allowed me to find my feminine side and bring it out and show it to people and learn how to reconcile it with my more masculine dominated traits and, soften some of them. So it's a work in progress. And that's the thing with balance, is you never stop. It's never a stagnant point. If you even just picture a balance beam, there's always a little bit of shifting of weight to each side. It's going to happen naturally, and your job is to shift the weight back on the other side, right? Gravity kicks in, you push on the other side. Gravity kicks in, you push on the other side. And that's what you're going to do with all of these different aspects of yourself, is whenever one starts to dominate, you bring it back a little bit, find that balance point, and in doing so, you'll find a lot more inner peace, a lot more calm, and a lot more clarity for your manifestations. Male and female as a topic, or masculine and feminine as a topic, I don't want to go too far into here. Hopefully we'll get to them at another time, because I think that they're really important, but could dominate an entire conversation. So I'll leave it at just the idea of balancing the two within yourself. And then good and evil. And with balancing good and evil, that becomes something that's bigger than yourself, because you need to be able to balance your reactions to good and evil, as well as your actions within good and evil. We all have potential to do beautiful things. We all have potential to do destructive things. Sometimes you need to destroy in order to create, so therefore that potential is necessary, right? And so understanding what evil is, very difficult, requires a lot of studying and a lot of observation and a lot of looking at things that you don't like to look at. But in order to totally have, a proper gnosis of the topic of evil, you're going to have to look at how you have the potential for evil, and that there is a dark side to you. There is a shadow to you. There is a part of you that, even though you don't like it, and even though you don't want it to, that suggests evil actions. An important question to kind of ask yourself and roll around in your own morality and your own thought processes is evil something we are, or is evil something that we do? I'll repeat it one more time. Is evil something that we are, or is evil something that we do? Same thing would be good, right? Because pretty much everybody does something good. I mean, Bill Gates has done a lot of good. But I'm sure your opinion on him would not be good, right? So again, is good something that we are, or is good something that we do? Either way, we have the potential for both, and we tend to do some of both. And we need to learn how to control the evil that we do, make sure that we're really disciplined in our actions so that we're not being self-serving in what we're doing, especially if you're going to start playing with magic. I made that very clear, I think. Your intention is very important, and the same thing with the good. Why are you doing it? And then who is it good for? Does it matter? These are all questions you need to start asking yourself so that you can learn how to balance what good and evil are, and what good and evil means to you, and what you're going to do with those two opposing forces in your actions in the world. So, I mentioned it earlier. One of the first things that I ever did was learn to not get too excited, because I noticed when I was really young that if I got really, really excited about something and I couldn't sit still and everything was so good and everything else, even if I got that thing, I would still inevitably crash. It was almost like nature needed to balance, and something bad would happen. I used to do this thing when I was a little kid where I would just get so excited and I would laugh and I would laugh and I would piss everybody around me off until the point where everybody started yelling at me, right? So that was nature providing me that balance. And the same thing on the other end. I mean, depression's a real thing. I've experienced bouts of it. I'm sure many of you have. Thankfully, I don't have a chronic problem with it, but if you do, it's a fucking horrible thing. But we all get, situationally depressed. We all have bad days. We all have bad things happen in our life. So we all know what it feels to feel crushed, to feel all of that absolute badness, sadness. So again, it tends to happen where the only thing that really ever gets you out of that pit, if you've gone too far, is something extreme, something, like a drug or like an alcohol or something like that that'll pick you back out of it. And it doesn't have to be something like that. It could be an occurrence in your life. Maybe you get really, really good news or something like that. But what will happen if that's the case is you become kind of dependent on that trigger to get you out of that deep end. And nature will always throw you right back there if that's the way you got out. So what we need to do is, if we do ever hit the ends and we pull ourselves back out, we got to, at that moment, recognize, okay, don't let this go to our head. Don't let this go too far. Remember where we are, where we just were. And we're a lot happier, obviously, where we are right now. Let's identify the difference between where we are and where we were. And let's make a plan for how we can maintain that and get back here if we ever do happen to fall back down. So all these things that you can do to practice maintaining your emotional state, your mood, your level of depression, your level of excitement, over time you get better at doing that. It becomes almost like muscle memory. Practice it long enough, practice any of these things long enough, they become really simple and like a second nature, almost like an instinct to you. What are some examples of this in the mythology and the entertainment that we all like? Obviously, I mentioned Gandalf right off the top. Should be a pretty obvious one, especially if you get into the lore surrounding the wizards within Lord of the Rings. Why Gandalf the Grey was significant. And if you remember when Sauron, became corrupted, he was replaced by Gandalf, and Gandalf came back as Gandalf the White. What Tolkien's kind of telling us is that there's times when you need to be gray, and there's times when you need to be white. And if you remember, near the beginning of Lord of the Rings, when Bilbo is questioning Gandalf's intentions, and Gandalf gets really big and really tall and really loud and really deep voiced and really dark. You see Galadriel do that at one point in time in the movie too. Let the darkness take over. So what they're showing you is that there's times for all of it, right? There's times when the darkness is what is needed in order to achieve balance. There's times when the light is what is needed in order to achieve balance. But where you want to sit, where you want to try and sit, is in the balance. Again, never stagnant, always rocking, always glowing. It's like a dance. It's a dance that you're doing with everything else within creation, all the co-creators around you. You're dancing with them. One of the ways that this dance plays out is this balance of good and bad and light and dark and male and female and all of those other things that we call duality, right? And people question duality and actually try to talk about it like it's nonsense or it's a sickness or it's terrible. It's something we should try and forget. But no, it's part of this experience. It's really hard to remember again when we're incarnated in these bodies why we did it in the first place. But I guarantee you, once you get out of here, you're going to remember, and you're going to remember all of those moments and be like, you dumbass, you should have just, it's part of the experience. Jedis. The Jedis have a whole gray order within their mythology, actually, where those Jedis eventually saw that, Darth Vader was wrong, but there was problems with what Luke Skywalker was doing too, and maybe somewhere in the middle is where that balance comes from. The entire mythology of Darth Vader and Luke and Leia and everything that came later with Rey and Kylo Ren and Rey is all telling you an overarching story of the universe trying to achieve balance. When it does things like send out a galactic wave to spark evolution, it's again trying to achieve balance. The period we're going through right now is a period that we need to achieve balance in, and that's why I'm emphasizing all of this. The energy has a potential to go really, really too good, to the point where we spiral out of control in one direction and has the opposite potential too. And our conscious creator choice and role here has to be to achieve some type of balance. And that's what's coming through in a lot of the stories that are the mythos of your time, is that it's not about being this absolute benevolent ruler, and it's not about this being this absolute malevolent dictator. It's about being someone who sees both sides of those and accepts everything as a expression of whatever this universe is trying to achieve, right? And who are we to think that we should know what that is, right? We're participants in this. We are creating along with Source in order to achieve something we can't understand. But the job that we play is one of balance, is one of creating the momentum in either direction in order to bring us back to a place where we're whole again. We hear about the Trinity as well a lot, right? Even in The Matrix. If you look at Neo and you look at Morpheus, you've got two very different people, and you kind of need both of them to make something that's whole. And if Trinity's character is kind of that bridge between the two, she plays that role of binding the two, bringing them together, being the voice, the middleman, so to speak. And that's what your body is kind of, or your mind is kind of doing between body and spirit as well. Spirit is a type of energy. Soul is a type of spirit, energy. It's a conscious energy. That's the way I divide it up anyways. Some people use those words interchangeable, but I see a soul as being a type of spirit that's individuated from a collective spirit energy, like a collective stream of energy. As an example, I would see wolves as having a spirit that runs through all of them, as kind of collective. And even though they have individual personalities, it's still all part of the whole. And what makes us different than a lot of these species of animal is that ours are more individuated, and we're more attached through a field of consciousness as opposed to a stream of it, which is a little bit different. Pretty much the same, but a little bit different. And that's why we have a lot more individualism than, say, a wolf pack does. That's why we don't necessarily fit too well long term into packs. They serve a purpose, but if things were to get stagnant, you would see the fellowship break up, right? So balance between mind, body, and spirit should be a daily practice. Something that I was taught young, and if I were to give you a secret, it would be the importance of that. A lot of people will get into spirit and forget about the body, and a lot of people will get into the mind and forget about the body, and a lot of people will get into the body and forget about the mind. And it really, this is a three-way dance, but it's again a dance we need to bring balance to, which means doing things each day which are good for your body, which means doing things each day which are good for your mind, which means doing things each day that are good for your spirit, soul. Obviously, there's a million examples of how you could do any of those things, whether it was for your body, exercising, eating right, sleeping well, getting hugs, for your mind, reading, writing, creating, watching stuff, imagining. And then for your spirit, that's where the good and evil part comes in again. It's doing good. It's trying to make sure that each day you show gratitude and you explore your feelings and you allow yourself freedom of expression. And by doing all of those things and treating yourself like you're that important that you need to pay that much attention to yourself all fucking day long, and you are and you do, you will eventually learn a kind of a balance and equilibrium between looking after your body, looking after your mind, and looking after your spirit. And once you get in a good rhythm of that, to achieve a bit of a balance with that, that's where you'll find yourself the strongest. That's where you'll find yourself the most at home. And you need to feel that way if you want to start, helping everyone else and changing the world and manifesting a better dream. So I think that's a lot of what I wanted to say about that, or all I wanted to say about that. I guess that's all I want to say about that. It's just a very important thing. Going back into, magic, having all of this balance frees up your energy and frees up your creative juices, so to speak, creative space, to imagine. And like we spoke about last time, strengthening your imagination is the first step to your being able to manifest reality. It also strengthens your will, because you start to understand better how you feel, and you start to be able to break down information better, and you start to be able to process it all better, and your actions are a lot more clear and a lot more deliberate and a lot more in tune with your intentions. And then with the conviction part of things, you will develop more conviction by learning balance, because you will start to see the fruits of what it's like to do things well. You will get some payoffs. You will start to see the synchronicities happen. You will start to feel the difference within yourself. You'll start to see yourself get healthier. And therefore, you're strengthening your ability to create magic by focusing on what balance is, what it means, and how you can achieve it. So there you go. We need that imagination. We need that balance so that we have all of our weapons in place to do, something that's should be a daily practice for us. Something like the Heart EMP, which I described one time, creating a ball of energy around you, a ball of shield around you to collect your own energy as you're generating, and then pulling that all down into your heart chakra and exploding it out through intention, is something that's going to keep you safe from a lot of the frequencies that are going on, a lot of the nanoparticles that are going on. And I'm getting the question over and over and over again about how we combat this. And that's why I chose this topic, because we're going to have to learn to achieve a balance between us and it on a frequency level. There's nowhere we can go on the planet to escape it. We're not going to be able to get rid of every little bit of metal within us, and we're definitely not going to be able to escape every radio frequency, right? It doesn't matter how far into the bush you get or how many times you detox or any of that stuff. So what's left? What's our last option? Our last option is to learn how to treat this natural path that we want and this transhumanist path that's coming in front of us as good and evil, and find some type of balance within our thoughts, feelings, and actions regarding them. Otherwise, we're going to drive ourselves crazy, and nobody wants that. What does that mean? Well, we're going to have to take a good hard look at what's coming, which I've been talking about, other people have been talking about, and reconcile the fact that there's only so much that we're going to be able to do to keep ourselves away from it. And so based on what we know we can do and what we can't do, what other options do we have? Well, as an energetic being, you have all sorts of them. If you've learned how to perform magic well, if you've learned how to manifest well, because you're going to be able to create defenses against these things, and you're going to be able to naturally combat them. And you're going to be able to find an equilibrium in a world that they exist. If you want to view it as an enemy, then you need to understand your enemy. And that means you're going to have to, explore what it's capable of and learn the signs, learn the weaknesses, learn your weaknesses, learn your signs, and treat it like the battle that it is for a while. And it's going to take us some time. But we've been through this before. We've been through it many, many times. No matter what body form you've ever experienced or your soul's entire journey, you've experienced a change in frequency like this so many times. You just don't necessarily remember it. But we've also done it within our own lifetimes. I mean, these technologies have been rolling out over the last 50 years, and they've changed things every time. It's an incremental change. This isn't something we haven't been through before. We've lost people. People have got sick as a result. All of that is true, and that is true now. But we can find a balance. You just have to develop the courage to face it that way. So that's why I wanted to do this anyways, to try and emphasize that, because I want to see us get through it as fast as we can. And I don't really like the idea of people being miserable and sad and scared of it. So every day, practice, discipline, do these things. I know it seems hopeless, but I think the more of us that are doing it, we have more ability to mitigate it. And, the more of us putting our thought into behind, not being completely in fear of it, but instead understanding that it's something we're going to have to dance with, and preparing ourselves for that dance. And yeah, so I hope we can do that. I hope we can do that. So I didn't expect this would be too long. You guys can start asking questions in the chat, and I will start looking if you'd like. For the next movie, I kind of want to get into some stuff regarding Dreamtime and astral travel that I couldn't really find a good way to make a podcast like this about. So I thought a good thing to do would be Inception, because it'll give me the opportunity and a lot of visuals that go along, as well as the theme content of the movie. All go along with that stuff. So that's the next choice. Hopefully we can get people synced up with me again and have some fun watching that one. And the song that opens my podcast episodes, and I've played a couple times here now, is something that I wrote using dialogue from the movie A Never-Ending Story. The Never-Ending Story? A Never-Ending Story? One of those two? Is that a Mandela effect? So I think I'll do that one next, because that's, especially if you read the book for that, it's an incredibly coded with esoteric understanding, all the themes and ideas, even though it's kind of a kid's movie, are all about kind of self-discovery and what we need to do as individuals in order to properly navigate this whole dimension thing here. And for the next one of these, I'm just going to take a bunch of questions and do another one of those, because way too many people sending way too many questions after my talk with David. Anyways, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's right. We went through that last time. You got to really think through what you're doing, because you can't see all ends. What movie was that? What character is it? I guess it's Doctor Strange. Where he's able to kind of go through time and look at all the different potentials. That's what the time travel technology you hear about actually is just looking at potentials in the future. But again, they're kind of set on a train that only involves data that exists right now. And of course, playing out any timeline, new data can come in, which changes what happens, right? So The future is not set. Childlike eyes are the most psychic eyes. This is true. It's the kind of proof in what I tell you guys all the time. Just look at your kids. You'll see it. There's a lot of stuff that they don't know because it has to do with this world, and we haven't shown them yet. But there's stuff that they just know that comes through in their questions and their behaviors that'll let you know that there's a lot more to consciousness and what's going on within us than just the mind, just that computer processing unit that we carry around in our skulls. It's another thing to balance, I suppose, is learning the brain, the mind, and how it works. There's the left, the right, and then the part that holds it all together for balance, right? Can't think of enough examples. Been thinking a bit about the idea of transgender people and homosexuality as being some type of natural balance in nature. I often look at what the dark side puts a lot of their thought into and wonder what the natural version of that is. So something like the idea of eugenics, the natural version of that, I think most of us would immediately assume would be Darwinian theories. But there might be more to it than that we've just never seen play out. And although I know that there's factors such as our environment is very, very unstable, therefore it's very hard for DNA to remain stable when it's developing. I've said before that I think in some transgender cases, what has happened is a soul has made the decision to be born in a female body, but entered that body before it had totally assigned itself as female, and GMOs and other frequencies in our environment kind of got in the way. But there's also a very big imbalance between the masculine and feminine over years of perverting those ideas for us. It was Freeman Fly and Jamie, on the Princess Boy and the Warrior Girl programming. And they're not wrong. That's very much been an agenda, was to try and present that not even a proper Xena type archetype to women, but more of just the arrogant bitch archetype to women, and making them believe that somehow that's their power, as opposed to nurturing in them the idea that their power is that they're the keepers of life. And same with men. It's been kind of beaten out of us that we need to be accountable for our actions. To sum it up, the least offensive way. No one has taught us how to be accountable for our actions. And then morality's all fucked up, as I'm sure we all know. Perverted and twisted and turned on its head and made it so it's backwards and makes no sense. And so that's going to be a tough one for us to bring balance to. I think it's a good time for us to start thinking about it within ourselves and talking about it more. I'm going to try and do that myself, and I hope other people do as well. I don't know what to say. I really don't. My head's been in a million places this week. I've been trying to keep balance. Everything's really active in terms of, the many pieces operating behind the scenes in our political world right now, trying to figure out how to deal with all of these changes that are coming. And you can kind of feel it. And it's funny because it doesn't matter how much you try to avoid, the fear programming of the media. You can feel it emanating out of people. You're going grocery shopping or out for your walk. I don't know what it's like for you guys, but our weather is absolutely insane as well. I put a picture on my Instagram yesterday. I've been trying to take this one picture from a location because with my naked eyes I can see it quite clearly, but for whatever reason with the camera I can never pick it up because there's just too much smog in the atmosphere, I guess. But yesterday I was able to take that picture nice and clearly because all that smog's not there. At least most of it. Yeah, I think I'm out of things, guys. Ask questions. I'll give it another minute. If I don't see any questions, then I'm going to do a quick wrap up here because I could go lay down. I had a good friend send me some healing things today and had a nice ritual bath, which is one of the ways in which I indulge my female side because I was always told that baths are for girls once you're a teenager. So I always have my super manly man time and have a nice hot bath. Epsom salt baths, really good for you. Sweating in the bath like that, getting really, really hot, burning out, really, really good for you. I recommend it. All right. Well, I appreciate all of you coming to join me this evening. Hopefully you'll take something positive from this and give you something new to try. All of this is meant to lead you towards being able to find your own solutions here. So if I seem not preachy, not trying to tell you exactly what to go look at or exactly what to go do, and kind of just giving too many simple answers, it's because I really want you to figure this out on your own because it'll feel better that way. And with that said, I'm going to say goodnight. I love you all. Take care of you for us. And we will talk again soon.